Again, minimalism doesn't mean doing less. It's just keeping what.
Hello everyone, we have today with us Mr. Joe Tohme, who got recently featured at Humans of Globe as topmost influential architect uh, driving change in 2025. Welcome to podcast, Mr. Joe.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. And your
Thank you for
recent
having me.
feature, yes, and your recent feature with us celebrated your creative philosophy and also the kind of designs that has impacted in the Middle East region. This podcast is not only about discussing the structures and shapes, but also discussing the designer behind those structures, your meaningful architecture, and also bits and pieces of the lessons from your leadership that has structured and that has shaped your career. So again, welcome to the podcast. And how are you doing today?
Well, today I'm great. I want to thank you again for having me over this podcast. It's very interesting the fact that we can talk about what's happening behind the work, not
True,
just about the
true.
work itself, which is very interesting.
Right. And that brings me to my first conversation point here that, how has this feature as the topmost influential architect who is driving change in 2025, given the kind of work that you are involved in, has reflected over you personally and professionally? Because we are mostly engaged in our work, and an artist always thinks about what can be done next. So how has this feature shaped your thoughts personally and professionally?
So listen, this being named among the top most influential architects driving change in 2025 has affected me on both levels. Personally, it made me reflect on my journey from when
Mhm.
I started in Lebanon and then taking the chance and risk going to Saudi Arabia and to opening my own studio on my own. It made me think about every single step, about all the efforts that I've done, and
Mhm.
professionally, it's a great appreciation for our work as a company, as Stamp. Eventually, being nominated means that people are not just enjoying the aesthetical look and feel of our projects, it means that they are enjoying living in the environment that we create. As you know, design is not just about visual. It's about the
True.
space itself, and it's about the environment that you create for the people, whether it's offices or residential. So the
Right.
nomination pushes me to create more and to work more on getting new projects, on creating beautiful spaces for people to enjoy themselves there. It pushes us to raise our standards and work more on that.
Right. And Stamp, right? You have found your own design studio. So, what's the story behind this? How is Stamp and your vision has been aligned towards this studio?
So Stamp came out of very simple concept. Eventually, every client has his own identity, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to create his own stamp as a client, hence the name Stamp, because we wanted for
Uh,
each project to have its own stamp. Throughout the
True.
years, I worked in several companies, and to be honest, I learned a lot. And because of these companies, I became the person who I am. But at some point, I wanted to create this clean space for me and my team, for us to share our ideas, to share our direction, to be able to control the way that we want the project to look alike. Hence, we created Stamp, which is a design studio where everyone can feel safe and comfy to share his ideas and to work on his direction to create the image that we want to reflect. And to make the clients feel also safe so they can come and give us whatever they want and we can help them realizing
Right.
their dreams and their goals.
Correct.
When we
Correct.
started Stamp, we were just aiming to design beautiful spaces. But later
Mm-hmm.
on, and as we grew, we shifted. We started creating experiences. We started to understand the needs of the client and tailor the space up to his needs.
Right. Every individual, has their own stamp, has their own identity, a unique identity. So I
Yeah.
can really connect to how this story might have got aligned at your end. Though, what happens is, as an individual, see, if I myself, if I want to get a space created through an architect, say by Joe, then I have a mindset which I really want to see when I live in that space. So, how do you manage the occupant's personality and the structure's own essence? As an architect and as a designer, how do you work on that part?
Listen, that's a very interesting question because not everyone understands the full on procedure. To start with, the most essential point is to listen. Is to listen
Mm.
to listen to the client and his needs. Eventually, every client has his own DNA, his own needs. It's different from everyone else. So you
True.
start by listening and understanding his needs. For example, let's talk about an office project. Whenever a
Mm-hmm.
client comes, each office has its own structure, whether by team, by department. So it differs from a project to another. So once you start listening by his needs, you'll be able to create the space. By space, I mean, let's say open space, closed space, circulation. You can
True.
tell during your questions to the client which department goes along with which department, so you know where to put them. So you start working on the layout itself. And
Mm.
also, while talking to him, you'll understand the branding of the company, the goals, the roles, the colors. If it's, let's say, a law firm, you'll understand that you need to use more firm colors because, and it depends on the history and the background of each company, as I told you, on its DNA, so you can create its own personality. That's how
Oh,
you create this link between personality and functionality, because eventually you need to create a space that's functional for people, where the
right.
employees are the center of the space, by
Mm.
reflecting as well the goals and the DNA of each company on its own.
Correct, correct. And more than the individuals, I see that you're working all around Riyadh, Dubai, and Lebanon. So it's also bringing in the diversified challenges with, different communities being there. Uh, More than individual, perspective, this diversification takes you over to the cultural and contextual differences, right? So does it affect your design choices when you actually start building on this different communal regions?
Listen, each area has, or each cultural has its own standards, let's say. For example, in Riyadh, now they are aiming to get more international. They want more luxurious places while maintaining the privacy, which is different than Dubai, because in Dubai, it's all about technology, it's all about accepting great ideas, new ideas, huge ideas. Whereas in Lebanon, it's more about historical things, it's more about emotional things, handcrafts. So since I work in these areas, technically that they belong to GCC, even though I try to reflect each culture on its own, but eventually
Mm,
create the link indirectly. And you try to reflect and to take from each culture the essence and reflect it in the other one. It helps you,
mm,
it helps guiding you while doing your design.
true, true,
It's a
true.
privilege actually
Correct.
that you have because it will affect everything from all the patterns, from all the culture, from the history. So you can mix and match between all of them while being truthful to the culture of each region.
Right, right. It shows a legacy behind the whole art which is now getting created with a story to tell. Of
Yeah.
course, right. And I see from the feature which has been already published that your emphasis is more on a simplified design, uh, purpose, and minimalism. So, how do you, just draw towards this? And also, on the other end, keeping it powerful and expressive. Of course, different regions, different stories. So, aligning your thought process and keeping it as per the standards which are more powerful and expressive to the world out there.
Okay. So listen, I think everyone has a misunderstanding of minimalism. Minimalism is not just about doing less in life. It's
True.
about taking the essence of a space and just
Mm,
keeping what's necessary. It doesn't have to be in that you have to make everything very less. For me,
right.
minimalism is more about transparency. It's more about being true to the space. Once you understand the project and the client needs, you'll be able to keep the essential in the space. You can use, of course, sometimes, depending on the client and his recommendations, some strong materials, some strong finishes. But eventually, when you have a space and you have clean lines, clean finishes, everything is transparent. You don't need to add all these add ons to create a design. You'll have a very clear design where people will enjoy and feel at ease in the space. So
Right.
again, minimalism doesn't mean doing less. It's just keeping
Correct.
what's
The
necessary
right
to the
things.
space, to the environment, to the people, to the vibe, to the energy, to the atmosphere, because you can, while designing, you work on different levels. So disregard everything that's extra and maintain the main purpose of the design.
Right. I love what you are saying. There are zillions of things which can make person happy, but choosing the right ones which are actually required, uh, that's in the eye of an architect,
Yeah,
and
and
that's
that's the
where the
hard part.
architect comes in.
Yeah,
True.
that's the hard part because with everything happening around, and let's be honest, not all the clients understand the fact that you need to minimize sometimes or get rid of few stuff. Eventually, for example, let's say let's talk about residential project. A person comes and he has plenty of ideas, especially when designing your home. You want to put everything there. But after
True.
talking, and maybe you can prepare a questionnaire for the client to see what's the most important thing and what are the necessities, you can start removing the non-essential stuff until
Right.
you get the most important things in the space.
This happens because we are living in a world of social media wherein we see a lot of stuff around us,
Yes.
and we try to compare this with our own space. Uh, Probably we might not feel happy in that place in a year long time. It is just for that moment, and then fighting with our architect to get it to in our space is, I think, a challenge to get the most out of it. A lot of
Yeah,
things
you're right.
around.
Because usually people forget that technically they're not doing the space for a day or two or a year or two. No,
True.
I totally understand that people want to incorporate trends, but at least
Mm,
let us incorporate it in a timeless way, not by
right.
using items or materials that might vanish in a year or two, or that you might get
True.
bored. Because let's be realistic, not everyone is going to change his design every year or
Every
other.
year. Right, right. It's a commitment towards this space
Yeah.
somewhere. And
Yeah.
the things that we add in as in the design, it also brings into the time commitment, right? And I also see that you emphasize over the right time to commit. So this timely discipline in your creative process, how important is it in an architectural and in design process?
Listen, design is all about creativity and having beautiful ideas. But at some point, you need to stop that part and start executing. Otherwise, the project will never end. Once you start designing, the sky is your limit.
True.
But throughout the procedure, you will reach a point where you're, let's say, 70% or 80% convinced with what you're doing. And that's agreed. You're going to be always modifying and adding stuff, and you can always make a space looks better. But at some point, and through the experience, you'll know when to stop and start the execution phase. And as we all know, while executing, while doing the execution drawings, while pushing the design, you can still modify and push it further. But having this time limit and pushing yourself will help you to get a great result, because if you reduce the phase of the execution, whether drawings or execution in real life, the design will not reach its final stage, and it will look odd and you'll have a lot of problems while executing it.
True. Of course, it can go endless. I have seen projects starting today, and I'm like, when is this going to end? Why is
Yeah.
this taking? So I think it's from the customer's perspective and the people who are going to stay there. They keep seeing a lot of changes when it actually has started. This brings in your team at a level wherein they need to manage that. How do you deliver with a smooth communication ongoing between the owner and the architect and the designer and lot many stakeholders involved. So, you are in a position wherein currently you are today a leading stamp, your own studio. So it's just not the artist behind it, but also a person who is a leader, who is leading a team, who is delivering. So, in your journey, what are those leadership lessons that you have learned, or those spilled out as an architect?
Okay, so technically, I come from a design background. So learning how to manage a team was rough, and I did a lot of mistakes throughout the years. But eventually, for me, I discovered three main points in my life. First of all, it's all about consistency, not intensity. When you create
Mm-hmm.
this link between you and your team on every single basis, sorry, when you create this link where you talk to them every single day, it will create this bond between yourself, and it will create this family feeling in the space. You're not supposed to vanish and then come every now and then and be intense and scream at them. Consistency in this relationship helps a lot, and it will make them feel at ease. It will make them feel that they can trust you and that you're there to help them. This is the first point. The second point is to control your own emotions. Your
Mm-hmm.
negativeness will affect your team even if you don't believe it, or even if it's in a indirect way. It's normal throughout the day. Every person goes through ups and downs, but the main thing is not to affect your team, because if you reflect it on them, it will affect their work in an indirect way. Eventually, you're managing them, you're helping them, you're pushing them. So at least you have to like hide all your negative vibes and just try to be supportive for them and to push them to the max. And finally, for me, leadership or mentoring is all about advices. I don't want to be their boss as to control them. I'm gonna be there for them to push them, to help them, to try to push the best out of them. Eventually, we're gonna be one community, and we're gonna be seeing each other every single day and living with each other every single day. So my purpose is to push them to give their best. For now and for later on. Eventually, they might become their own managers later on. So at least I want to have helped them in that and to have some benefit in that.
True, and all the 3 points that you have mentioned that actually carries a team and nurtures the collaboration amongst the team itself. So, as an architect and an interior designer leading a team, right? I always see you as an creative person, always drawing artists coming around. So, how do you nurture that creativity and innovation throughout the team? Or what is it that keeps them uh, creativity heavy? What is
Yeah.
it?
It's hard to keep their creativity heavy, but eventually throughout the years you understand few stuff. For example, for me, having their own freedom by giving their opinion is something very essential. And for example, every week when we start each week, we gather, we list all the projects that we have, and I let each and every one of them give his own opinion about the project. Maybe he has ideas. I don't want them to be backed up. Even let's say if I have one member working on a project and the other working on something else, it's essential that they can criticize each other in a positive way, of course, in a constructive way, because it will help them be creative and they might learn from each other. Eventually, once you're working on one project, you'll be diving in. So sometimes you just need this outside vision, let's say, or someone who's not that involved in the project. He might see something different. That's how you
Right,
can push them to become better. And also giving feedback, because not everyone will
right.
accept feedback, but eventually in life, especially with the clients, no one's going to like the project from the first time. So it's super healthy for you to push them to learn that in
Right,
real life you're going to have feedback. And one last
correct.
point is attending all the events. There's a lot of design events happening all over the
Lot
world,
of
whether it's
design,
Dubai
right.
Design Week, whether the events in Saudi Arabia or Milan Design Week. So it's super healthy for your team to go to that event. Maybe they won't go all at once, but let's say two members went to the first event. They'll come back, prepare presentation, explain everything, because in each event you might discover a new material, a new way of thinking, and we need to keep on developing with everything happening around us. We're not staying
Right,
steady.
right,
So for
right,
me, these are the way that I can push my team to become more creative and they can do some small
right.
competition between themselves, do some pitches.
Correct,
So yeah.
correct. Being in that aura actually, and on top of it, in parallelly, you always have your budgets and timelines ongoing. So, with a project which has a long tenure, how do you see this, I would say restricted budgets and timelines, not as challenges, but you convert those into opportunities somewhere and not as blockers. How does that work?
Usually, especially nowadays in Riyadh, all the projects have a limited timeline. Everyone wants his project done yesterday. It's the new trend.
Yeah,
I don't know why we
true.
always listen to the same sentence. I need this to be
Right,
delivered yesterday.
correct.
it grew on us. So honestly, we took it and we transformed it in something positive because eventually it will limit the phase of the design to a smart way. And at some point, you'll create clean plans, minimal layouts that are creative in a certain point, but having limited budget and limiting time, it will lead you to create a minimal, clean space that's efficient. And even
Right.
for the execution, because you have to take into consideration the execution phase. When you have a limited time frame, you cannot create something that's not executable in the time frame itself. So it will help
Right.
you direct your space. It will look amazing. It will look breathtaking, but at least you know that you have to go through clean lines, clean shapes, just for it to be executed in the limited frames that you have. So actually, it will add an extra positive thing in your design. It will not limit it.
True, true. I think best skills come out in the pressure.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's true.
sometimes
They will
we,
squeeze the ideas out of us.
yeah, yeah. So we think, this is gonna take, a day's time, but someone says that no, you have to deliver it yesterday. Then we are like, whatever best we can do in an hour's time. And we actually are able to perform the whole day's task in an hour. I have realized that in the pressure sometimes in my own work culture too.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And eventually, once you're under pressure, you'll function more. At least that's how I was raised. And in all the companies that I was working before, it
True.
was all about pressure. The bubble that the
Mm,
managers used to create to us was the small deadlines. And honestly,
right,
it gives the best out of us because once you're squeezed, خلاص, you'll have to work in this time phase. Because in case the
right,
time is more expended, let's be honest, everyone will take his time and you will work on other stuff in parallel. Once you have a
right.
specific deadline, you will have to squeeze yourself, push yourself, limit yourself to make the best out of it.
Like faster reviews, faster implementations, and
Yeah.
faster deployments.
Yeah.
And everyone's aligned. Everyone's like, okay, otherwise, it goes over an email. Then the next email gets read over in a day's time. But when we know that it has to be done in this particular timeline, then everything gets aligned automatically. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the beautiful part of handling pressure and turning it into opportunities instead of turning it down as a blocker. So yeah, true that. And how do you see Middle East as an upcoming future territory? I always see Middle East, Dubai, Saudi as like architect marvels around the world, right? So what do you foresee as in future as an architect and an interior designer for Middle East?
What's nice about the Middle East that it's trying to cope with everything happening around it, because as you tell, architecturally speaking, there's a lot of developments happening throughout the world, and the Middle East region is not staying back; it's following it, but at least it's doing it in a smart way. For me, as I see it for now, at least they are taking the human being as an essential point, and they are designing the world around it. They are revolving all their design around it, whether by using biophilic design, by introducing nature, because eventually the well-being of the human being is the essential of the design. While designing, you're not just designing to have a beautiful space, you're designing
Right.
to make the people at ease, to make them comfy in their space, whether at work, whether at hotels, whether everywhere. And also, what's
True.
nice is that in the Middle East, people are thinking and concentrating more about materials. As we were saying earlier, when you design a space, you want to use materials that will last long time, that will last at least 10, 15 years, 5 years, let's say. You don't want to design while using materials that you might get bored of tomorrow or
Mm.
the day after. That's why we're
Mm-hmm.
using sustainable materials, which is very
Right.
smart because it will shape the future and it will help you to create things that will look nice in the future. And what's something super essential here is the culture. Everyone in the
True.
Middle East design following the culture. Let's be honest, we have a very rich culture in the region. And what's interesting is that all our design are based on these cultures. For example, recently we were working on a hotel. It's a worldwide hotel, and as you know, each hotel would like to have his own identity throughout the world. But what's
Right.
nice, and the clients are understanding that it also needs to reflect the identity of the country that you are in. And for example, let's say any hotel's name, Four Seasons, for example. It's nice when it reflects the identity and the architecture of each country while keeping its identity. So the mixture of
Right.
this culture and of the storytelling, whether from the welcoming way or from the lighting or from few patterns or colors, it will give its identity, and it will make it feel like it belongs to this country. It's not like a prototype all over the world. So the way
Right.
that the architecture is developing and the interior design is developing in the Middle East honestly make me feel proud. And I can tell that where we're going is a nice place, a smart place, because we're following these points, which are very essential for each design and for the human being.
Right, right, right. And now I feel the story behind it. Like we are consumers of what has been built by architects and interior designers, right? We visit these hotels, we visit these spaces, and probably we might be appreciating that particular moment, but there's lot more which has happened already while building it. I really,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to reflect my last visit somewhere, and it really shows me what kind of efforts might have been put in to give us as an experience which is world class, and also tells about the history of the whole probably country wherein we visited. True
Listen,
that, right?
nowadays, when you talk about luxury, especially in hotels or residential, it's not just about the very expensive material, the very fancy material. It's about the experience when you go to a place.
Correct.
Eventually, you might forget
Correct.
the name of the hotel, but you will never forget the moment that you lived
Right.
there. For example, at the
True.
entrance, or having the pool in your room, or some small details that you saw.
Small
It's all
details,
about,
yeah.
yeah, it's all about the experience that you get once you enter a space, the welcome of the
Right.
people, of the staff. You will remember each and every single moment, and you will want to have them and to relive them again. So
True.
that's what we're trying to work on.
Correct. Correct. I can, talk to you about all these spaces and structures, all the artistry behind this for hours and hours. But though given the time, let's coming to an over end. What is it from Joe which goes to this young architects and interior designers over there getting inspired for building big structures, big spaces, beautiful architecture marvels as one of the your advisors over this platform?
Okay, for me, at least I have one essential advice, and it was a mistake that I used to do before. For me, it's essential not to design to impress. You're supposed to design to express. When you design
Hmm.
to impress, you're gonna fail. When you design to express whether your feelings, your emotions, or the client's needs, that's how you're gonna succeed. Because eventually we love what we do, and while designing, let's be honest, we're putting all our feelings, all our efforts, and we take all the needs of the client and we're trying to express them. And once we do that correctly while being humble, we'll be able to inspire everyone else and we'll be able to impress. So it's vice versa. Don't look at the impressive way at first. Just express everything, create everything
Right.
that's nice, and you'll get there easily.
And that actually makes the lasting impact somewhere. It was great having this conversation with you. Though, how would you say the Humans of Globe platform for the other architects and interior designers, for people who can express this journey of theirs along with the ideas over the features? Would you recommend this platform to other leaders as well?
Absolutely. Because honestly, nowadays, no one is taking the efforts to talk about what's happening behind the project. Usually, all the platforms just put the pictures of the project and explain the project itself. But no one's
Right,
talk about the journey of the designers, of the creative people behind it, the steps that they are going through. And this will help in, let's say, 2 points. First of all, it will help you connect with same mind people, same mind designers who have the same ambitions, so it would be easier for you to create a bigger network and interact with people with the same interest. And also, there's a lot of young designers who are afraid to take these small steps, and they need this push. And once they
right.
see people that have succeeded, maybe one of them is working right now in an office and he's dreaming about having his own company. When he sees that someone managed to do it will push him to work harder, and he will believe that he will be able to ace it later on in the future. So it's super important, honestly, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I think that's what we are here for, to learn from you. We really want the audience to see this podcast and get motivated. You have formed in Stamp. People might get motivated to form in their own company someday. And again, thank you so much for being here with us today. I really would like to have another conversation someday, probably at one of the spaces that are done by the Stamp, that are done by Joe, and look forward to having those conversations ahead.
Definitely, I would love to show you around of some of our projects. And thank you for having me in this podcast. It was very interesting talking to you.
Thank you so much. Same here. And thank you everyone for watching this podcast. And we will be doing a great podcast again coming up next week. So see you guys again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.